Hello world, Dano here, stacking paper as always. Today we are reviewing Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. Back on my Brando bullshit. It's been a minute. This is the third secret project. Third one that I've read too. And this book was okay. It was okay. It wasn't bad, but it didn't really do much for me. Also, like, disclaimer, I am totally not the target audience for this book. It's like a YA lovey-dovey kind of romance with some cool Cosmere stuff in there, but I don't know, like, a lot of this book kind of meanders. You really have to be invested in their relationship. If you are super into following the progression of how, you know, two characters who don't like each other and they slowly get to know each other and they warm up to each other and then they love each other. If that's your thing, then you'll love this book. It's definitely not my fucking thing, though. I'll start with some pros before. I'm not going to rip into it. I'll just, like, off the bat, I think this is like a 6.5 out of 10. Like, it just... Anyways, okay, so pros. The world is cool. At least Painter's world is cool. So the two main characters, we got Painter, aka Nikaro, and Yumi. And the whole premise is that they kind of have a Freaky Friday situation going on, where they're from two different worlds. As far as they're concerned, they're from two different planets. I will not get into that at all. But this is established very early, so this isn't even spoilers. I will do some spoilers, but I'll tell you when. So they kind of have this Freaky Friday situation where they're swapping bodies, and while they're swapping bodies, the other one is in like a spirit form that only they can see. So what ends up happening is they both have to live each other's lives while the other one is like coaching them through, and they come from completely alien worlds. So they're both based off of, I think, like, one is very clearly like modern day Japan, and the other one is like medieval Japan / Korea. And Yumi is this Yokihijo, which is like a spiritual figure that stacks stones to call spirits that she can then form into anything to help her respective people. Like, she goes from town to town and just does her little magic and helps people. But she lives under these, like, extremely strict rules. You know, she can't feed herself, she can't bathe herself, she gets carried everywhere, she has to pray pretty much all day. Like, it's just a miserable existence. Whereas Painter, the reason he's called Painter is because his whole job is he's a nightmare painter. So his world, it's like modern day Japan inspired, but it's more cyberpunky. And it's just surrounded by a shroud of darkness that like living nightmares come out of and attack people. And his job is, when he finds a nightmare, to start painting it. Weird, like, he has like a canvas and everything he paints, and the painting that he does forces the nightmare to conform to that thing. So he mostly just paints bamboo. And there's a whole, like, core of these people. They're like soldiers that protect their city, essentially. And this book is just, like, wrapped up in the mystery of, like, what the hell is going on with Painter's world. Also, where is Yumi? Where is her world? And why are they swapping? What's going on? The magic system is cool, while being simultaneously way more vague than any other Brandon Sanderson magic system, which obviously I'm not a huge fan of. I like hard magic systems. I like, you know, where there's like strict rule sets, and that way it forces the characters to solve problems creatively. They can't just, you know, hand wave it away. And I'm not saying that this book does that. It doesn't, but it's also not very good at establishing exactly what's going on. Even when you get to the part of the book where it literally, there are entire pages of exposition. By the way, Hoyd is narrating this book the same way he did with Tress. And he's also in the book, but not really. So, again, this is not even really a spoiler. It's established very early. But anyway, where the heck was I going with this? Yeah, there's entire pages of exposition once it gets to the point where it finally starts explaining things. And even then, there's still little particulars that don't really make sense. And I will get to that. But I do like Painter's world. Like, the world is really cool, even though we don't get to explore it that much. And Yumi's world is really not that cool. And there's a good reason for it, but it just doesn't help that it's not that interesting. And, like, whenever they body swap and he's in Yumi's world, I'm just like, damn, this shit is boring. But it is cute that there's a very much like a yin-yang energy between them. They are completely opposite personalities, and they both have to teach each other their way of life, which ends up kind of being like the thing they're missing. You know, they complete each other. It's really cute. So like Painter has to teach Yumi to relax a bit and kind of enjoy life instead of living this strict bubble, and Yumi has to teach Painter how to actually take shit seriously and stop being a fucking slacker. Which is cute and cool. But it does get boring pretty quick for me. My other big gripe with this book is there isn't really much of an antagonist until like very far into the book. You know, for most of it, it's just them kind of trying to figure out what the hell's going on while living each other's lives. Another thing that is both, again, there's so many things. I feel like everything that's cool about this book has a caveat. Like, another thing, there's so many Cosmere connections. There's a specific character in the book that basically just spells out stuff for characters, like clearly is a world hopper and has been to other places, because they reference investiture, returned, Elantrians, burning metals, things from Roshar like Chols and like void, what are they called? Void spawn, like chasm skulkers, chasm fiends. That's what I'm looking for. So, as someone who's read a bunch of Cosmere, it was really cool to see all that. But if this is your first Brandon Sanderson book, which I can see a lot of people picking up, particularly girls, so I'm going to be honest. Like, I think my girlfriend would love this book, because I just know her taste. But if this is your first Brandon Sanderson book, all of those Cosmere references are going completely over your head. And none of them are relevant to the plot, so it's not like a huge deal, but it's just like, you'll just get, extreme FOMO. Like, you're going to feel like you're missing out, which, I don't know, it kind of lessens this, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the integrity, but like the standing of this book as compared to something like Tress. Like, I compare this to Tress, they're both standalones. Tress works way better as a standalone than this does. Even though there are little Cosmere references, and actually I kind of want to go back and reread Tress, because when I originally read it, I hadn't read any Stormlight, so there were references in there that I didn't understand, but it didn't matter. It's just little things. It's little Easter eggs for, acute readers. But I don't know, with Yumi, and okay, now I'll get into spoilers, so spoiler warning. So again, the other issue I had with this book is there was no real antagonist. So there's a big reveal that Yumi and Painter are actually from the same world, and Yumi is essentially not a human. She lives in the shroud, so the shroud that's surrounding Kilohito is just raw investiture. It's like raw, like soul magic, which is like it's what powers all the magic systems in the Cosmere. And way back when, these scholars built this machine to essentially do the jobs that the Yokihijos were doing, like stacking stones to call spirits, but they fucked up, and the machine just started taking everybody's soul, like taking all their investiture, just completely wiped out, and that's what creates this massive shroud. So this machine is just like self-perpetuating, and it's constantly doing this, but there are some souls that refuse to be taken, and so they respawn themselves. Okay, Yumi's one of these people. But what the machine does is it essentially creates like this illusion world, because it can't take their investiture, it traps them and like basically convinces them that they're a Yokihijo, and it goes through all the motions, and everything in their world is actually like these nightmares, including her mentor Lee Yoon, which then ties into Painter's story, because there's this stable nightmare that's running around assumedly massacring people but not doing it. And I don't know, there's just so many things that like kind of don't line up. Like, again, Lee Yoon as the shadow tries to kill Yumi at some point, but then later Painter talks to her and convinces her to not do that. Even with the magic system of these Yokihijos respawning, it doesn't really explain how that happens. And then you jump to the end of the book. They have the big battle against all the nightmares. And then after they're defeated, after Yumi destroys the machine that's at the center by doing this crazy stone stacking thing. Again, they never explain why stacking stones calls spirits. Like, it just is what it is. That's just how it works on that world. She destroys the machine, which then ultimately destroys her, because she is made of all that investiture that the machine is churning out. But then all Painter has to do is paint his little mosaic of her, and that brings her back, but it doesn't really explain how that works. I'm assuming maybe essentially she's a Spren now. Like, I guess Stormlight, spoiler warning, like how Spren in Stormlight can become bad. It's like the shadows are kind of the bad version of that, but they're not Spren. These were people, because like at some point when all the nightmares are attacking and they're subduing them, they turn back into the original people that they used to be from 1700 years ago. So these people are 1700 years old, somehow still alive. But then when the machine gets broken, all those people evaporate into nothingness, but somehow he's able to save Yumi. Like, they just don't really explain that. And it does kind of bug me. I kind of wish that she just died. Not because, like, I'm a bad person or anything. It's just, like, it would make more sense for the catharsis of the story. Like, if he did that big painting of her and she remained dead, I think that would have more of an emotional impact than, him having his cake and eating it too. Also, crap, what was I going to say? Come on, Dano. I'm losing it. Okay, I'll just move on to another point. Hoyd is a cool part of this. I did like that. Even though he's a statue the whole time. But his little comments are fun. And his Spren is cool. I like that you get the reveal that he has a Spren. And that Spren is like super powerful, obviously. Because Hoyd is powerful. And it is kind of connected to Tress, because the reason he turns into a statue is because in Tress, he has his memory wiped by some other, I'm assuming, world hopper that's fucking with him. So he creates a safeguard where if his investiture was ever like being manipulated again, the safeguard would kick in. What he didn't realize is how that manifested on his world, on Painter's world, is as soon as he landed, the machine started trying to take his investiture and he just froze on the spot. Okay, and there's another thing. There we go. There's another thing that doesn't make sense. If the machine is taking his investiture, why isn't it doing that to everyone else that's in the city? Unless that's the job of the nightmares, I guess. There are things about this book that just don't line up cleanly, and it does bug me. I still don't think it's a bad book. Like, it was worth the read. I think it's cool in the Cosmere, but like as its own story, it's kind of like, don't look at it too closely and it's not that bad. But as soon as you start peeling a couple layers back, it's like, oh, this doesn't really maybe I'm just dumb, maybe I'm just missing things. I would say somebody comment and explain some shit to me, but like fucking 10 people watch these videos, so let alone someone who's read this book. But yeah, I don't know, it just wasn't for me, I guess. But I still think it was a fine story. There are some cool stuff about the magic system, like the Heon lines and how they use it to like do like radio plays. I thought that was kind of cool. I just think like he could have done more with it. They also don't even really explain how Heon lines like stay stable, because at some point they fly a ship to another planet that they think is, or that Painter thinks Yumi is from, but turns out it's a completely different planet. Probably a planet that's in one of the short stories. Probably like Sixth of Dusk, because it says it's a planet that's almost all water. But yeah, I don't know. This book just kind of, I guess because I hold Sanderson to such a high standard, I think maybe I just like set my expectations too high, but I kind of already went into it knowing I wasn't going to be a massive fan of it, because I knew it was like a romance, but that wasn't even like the biggest turnoff for me. It was more like the actual plot kind of meanders a bit, and unless you're really, and again, the supporting character, there we go. I remembered what I was going to talk about. So the big emotional, what's supposed to be the big emotional gut wrench is that Painter lied to his friends from getting into this dream watch, which is like the elite painters, because turns out Painter is like an amazing artist. And if you get into the dream watch, you get to choose your companions that come with you. So he told all his friends he got into the dream watch and he's going to take them with him. And they got all excited because then they're going to be set for life. But then he failed the exam, didn't tell them, and then just kept the lie going until they eventually found out. And then, of course, they stopped talking to him, ostracized him. But they made it seem like it was, like, such a terrible fucking thing. And, like, yeah, it's bad, but I don't know. It wasn't as bad as they kind of built it up to be in the story. It made it seem like he did something terrible. I thought it was, like, he killed someone, or, like, he did an action that, like, caused someone to die by being lazy on the job, you know? But no, it was just he lied to his friends about getting in the dream watch and then kept the lie going for a little too long. And I'm like, I don't know, like his friends seemed like super petty for that. Like I get it, but it wasn't the emotional like smack that I guess you get from Sanderson's other books. It just seemed like trite, you know? It was cool to see Yumi like defend him though. That was cute, but yeah, like that was just, and it's like, you know what? Fuck those friends for putting so much investment into him anyway. Like, why are you trying to ride someone else's coattails and then get pissed when the coattails slip between your hands? Like, it was just whatever, man. But anywho, still a fine book. Just probably the worst Sanderson. I'm like debating in my head now which one I like less, this one or Frugal Wizard. Frugal Wizard's probably still a little bit worse, but I think the lack of no, because that has a dumb love story too. So yeah, you know what, Frugal Wizard is a little bit worse. I'll say that, but this book was fine. Up next is a book I've been looking for a long time, actually. Tactics of Conquest by Barry Malzberg. Some really niche science fiction. It's already quite weird. Not really what I expected, but yeah, that should be coming soon because I am blitzing through it. Also, I've been reading a lot of the original Sherlock Holmes stories because they're public domain and I can just read that shit at work. So yeah, expect some of those reviews soon. But until next time, peace.